Greetings, Kyle. Don't make up words. Instead, try looking up words.
So let's revisit this issue that's received quite a response and a lot of attention online. It's the idea of traditional feminism, or just feminism, versus what I call neo-feminism and what a lot of people refer to as third-wave feminism.
The first thing I'll criticize is the terms you used. It's a common criticism from the right wing and the men's rights activists that yes, once upon a time feminism was needed to redress wrongs and inequality, and it has achieved that, and now it needs to go away. A similar argument is the Fox News argument that MLK equalized black and white people and therefore there's no more racism. I know that's not what you meant. I've watched the show for a while now. I know you know there's systemic inequality, pay gap, wealth gap, still some sexism, etc. The problem comes when you start making up terms like neo-feminism and calling it bad, and calling quote-unquote traditional feminism, calling it good. To someone that doesn't know you, it's the same argument. Right away, people started asking you to clarify if you meant third-wave feminism, and instead of looking up what third-wave feminism is, you confirmed that that's what you meant. Let me define some terms for you. The waves refer to history. The first wave got women the right to vote in the 20s. The second wave was 60s, 70s, but of the 80s. Sexual liberation, equal opportunity, abortion rights, the pill, etc. The third wave is the current form, continuation of the struggle because the first two didn't achieve equality. Basically, anyone not alive to burn their bra in the 70s is the third wave feminist. The third wave addresses some things that the second wave didn't. The second wave was largely middle-class white women, but the third wave addresses the impact of race, sexual orientation, trans women, and class issues, etc.
Let me get more specific on this because some people took issue with I was very loose in how I defined neo-feminist. Well, let me give you some clear-cut examples of what I would refer to as neo-feminism, specific issues where I'd say neo-feminists were involved. For example, if you're anti-porn. If you're anti-porn and you want to tell women you shouldn't be allowed to do that even if you want to do that, okay, that doesn't make you progressive, that doesn't make you a feminist. That makes you agree with people like John Hagee and Jerry Falwell and other insane evangelical far right-wing Christians. You want to control people. You don't want to give them freedom. You don't want to let them make their own decisions. You want to just define an entire industry as it's bad by definition because of my perception of how I want women to act. So you would be the ones controlling women more. I'm in favor of freedom for women, for them to make their own decisions. So any strand of feminism that is against women making their own choices, and they're against things like porn, you're not really standing up for women, you're not really defending them, that's not really feminism. Or it's a very radical strand of it that doesn't really embody the meaning of what feminism is supposed to be.
You define neo-feminism as anti-porn. This fight in feminism has literally been going on since before I was born. There's nothing new about it. If you had read up on the history of the movement, or fucking wiki it, dude, the debate you're referring to is the debate between sex-positive feminist and anti-porn feminist. I'd say, at least on the internet, most feminists are sex-positive feminists. I'm neither. I'm somewhere in between. I'd say there's good arguments on both sides. It's not just a matter of, well, anti-porn feminists are limiting women's freedom, therefore they're not feminists, and they're wrong, and they're conservative Falwell Hagee Nazis. I'm in favor of porn on First Amendment grounds and prostitution on general freedom grounds. Having said that, let's say prostitution is legalized. What now, right? A woman has more freedom now because now a man gets to rent her body? We have to eat to live. We have to work to eat. Now, instead of a shitty Walmart job, now you have to suck crusty old man dick to fucking feed your kids? Yeah, that's freedom to a libertarian who says, oh, you have choices. You can work a terrible job, if there even is one. Or you have the choice to starve. American freedom. Yes, in a perfect world, it would be a completely free choice to work where you want, and the rich wouldn't have an economic coercive advantage on the poor. But we don't live there. Like I said, I'm in favor of legal porn and prostitution, but the anti-prostitution feminists aren't dumb fuck conservatives that hate freedom.
When neo-feminists get angry over Princess in Mario, I'm not kidding, this is a thing. I didn't even know about this until recently. When I saw it, I was like, wow, this is a thing? a movement where people said, no, well, there's all the video game industry is sexist because sometimes there are games that perpetuate old school feminine roles and old school masculine roles where the male character has to save the woman. There's Princess and Mario, and that's sexist. Okay, it's a video game. I'm about as mad at that as I am at, Call of Duty leading to murders. Because you know what the reality is? Call of Duty doesn't lead to murders. First-person shooter video games don't lead to murders. Violent video games don't lead to violence. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact. There have been multiple studies on this. They all come back saying the same thing. And it's the same thing for the idea that perpetuates sexism in society is ridiculous. And what? You want to eliminate the idea of any old school feminine role, like a princess or something like that? So you're not pro-women. You want to mold women to never embrace certain things that sometimes they want to embrace. Sometimes there are situations where a woman wants to embrace the so-called typical feminine role. My sister, for example, she's a housewife, and she stays home, she raises the kids, she works hard, but there's a neo-feminism, a new branch of feminism that would come in and say, I don't support her doing that because she should be out in the workplace and she should be doing the things that men typically do, and for her to embrace that 1950s role, I'm against that. But no. But then again, you're not for women. You need to be in favor of freedom. You need to be in favor of every woman to make whatever choice she wants with her life. Some of them are going to choose to go into the business world. I fully support that. Some of them are going to choose to stay home and be housewives. I fully support that. You have to support it across the board. You can't just say we want to ban what was old school described as feminine. That doesn't make any sense. So to focus on video games, and also understand the video game industry is just responding to market demands. If it was an overwhelming majority of women playing video games, all the video games would reflect what the women wanted to see. But it just so happens that in that case, it's overwhelmingly male, so the video games reflect that. And there's also plenty of strong female characters in video games. So the point itself is incorrect. I don't understand when people want to focus on, honestly, petty things like that as opposed to real issues affecting women. It gets me angry because you're perverting the good name of a movement that makes perfect sense, that movement being feminism.
First of all, it's not an overwhelming majority of men who play video games. Check the facts. I'll include 2 videos about sexism and racism in video games from the PBS Game show if you want to check it out. Second, since when are market demands what makes something sexist or not? Jesus, Kyle, are you sure you're not a libertarian? And thank God I've discovered the arbiter of triviality. The impact of art and culture on society is massive and important, even if you don't think so. In fact, I'd argue that art and culture are more important than politics. The reason politics and economics and the sciences are important is because they help us stay alive. It's important for people to have access to food and resources and not be killing each other over them. But we don't live to eat. We live to sing and dance, and I'm sorry you have such a depressing worldview.
Of what I would describe as neo-feminism, which again doesn't make sense. There was a case, it was either in Germany or France, where feminists stormed a Barbie playhouse to shut it down because they said this perpetuates stereotypes about women and we don't want to allow any little girls to come into the Barbie playhouse. No, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a little girl just wants to play with a Barbie, and it's not evil, patriarchal society forcing a role onto women, okay? And understand, if you want to have a conversation about, well, Barbie shouldn't be so unrealistically skinny with those terrible dimensions, and that forces women or girls to try to aspire to that, and that doesn't make sense. I agree with you on that. I'm with you on that. But let's talk about that. Let's not talk about don't allow any Barbie playhouses because I don't like what it leads to. That's fascism. When you want to control society in that way?
Okay, I might have agreed with you here, maybe, if you had given a reason as to why they shouldn't have protested, besides it's fascism to protest ideas you disagree with. You know, fascism doesn't have a monopoly on free speech infringement. But again, you still don't understand free speech. They are perfectly within their rights to protest and boycott this Barbie house. Let me ask you a question. Are you ever in favor of any boycott, ever? It was the same freaking story with the Bill Maher and UC Berkeley protest. I'm not saying you can't be against particular boycotts either because you think they're ineffective or you disagree with their aims, but you seem to think that all boycotts are bad, always, and anti-freedom. So I don't know what to say here except to say, they're not always immoral, and they certainly are not illegal or fascistic. So what's a neo-feminist to Kyle? 1, a female supremacist. 2, feminists who aren't necessarily the previous thing, but want to limit a woman's freedom, i.e. porn. 3, feminists who aren't necessarily the previous things, but focus on what Kyle deems trivial. And 4, protesters and boycotters in general. You didn't define neo-feminism, Kyle. You gave disparate examples with no unifying traits or ideology except that which you don't like.